Hello, this is Sondra Oster Baras bringing you a few words of Bible from the heart of Biblical Israel. This week's Torah portion is Yitro, which is the Hebrew word for Jethro. And indeed, I'd like to just spend a few moments talking about this amazing character. Who is Jethro? Jethro is Moses' father-in-law. Jethro is a priest of Midian. We know all this from the very first words of this week's Torah portion. And of course, we have met Jethro in the past because when Moses flees Egypt and he ends up in Midian and he encounters these girls at the well and they bring him home to their father, well, they're bringing him home to Jethro. And here we meet him again, and he's coming and he's joining Moses. He actually has Moses' wife Zipporah and their two children. At some point, it seems, it's not exactly clear when, but that's the subject of a whole different teaching, when actually they went back to Midian and Moses was on his own in Egypt. But in any case, he joins them. And what does it say again in the first verse? It's all because Jethro heard all that God had done for Moses and for Israel his nation Israel, as he took Israel out of Egypt. In other words, he heard about the 10 plagues, and he heard about the miracle of the parting of the Red Sea, and he heard this amazing, amazing thing, unprecedented, that a nation that is enslaved by arguably the greatest empire of the ancient world at that time. And yet they are miraculously set free. They go forth. There's this God somehow that does all these miracles and brings them out. And he wants to see what's going on. It's not just a question of, in other words, the Torah portion does open by saying, and Jethro saw that now it was going to be safe for him to return Zipporah and his grandchildren to their father, and therefore he took them. No, it starts by saying he heard that's all that is going on, and then by the by he takes Zipporah and the two children. Okay, so he comes, and then the story continues along the same vein, because when Jethro comes to Moses, he says, he kind of presents himself, which is funny because he says, I am your father-in-law Jethro, as if Moses doesn't know him. Of course he knows him. But, he basically, it's clear here. And then it says that Moses went out towards him, that in verse 6, when he says, he said to Moses, it's really like he sends a message to Moses. He sends a message saying, okay, I'm your father, I'm here, I'm coming, at which point Moses goes out to him. He hasn't yet seen him. It's not like he says, hi, I'm Jethro. Of course, Moses knows who he is. Anyway, he comes out to him, and they each ask after each other, how are you doing? How you been? Okay. But immediately, the story goes to a much different level. It goes way beyond the personal of the wife and the father-in-law and all that stuff. And instead, immediately, Moses tells his father-in-law all that God had done to Pharaoh and to Egypt on behalf of Israel, and how they were saved. Okay, at which point we have an unusual word here, Vayichad Yitro. Jethro, something happens to him, and there's different explanations of what this means. But chad means sharp, and it also could mean like goosebumps or something. And in fact, one of the commentators says he was just so amazed that he literally had goosebumps. Okay, but there's no question, whatever the word actually means, it is this amazing reaction that Jethro has. And then, of course, the climax in verse 10, and Jethro says, blessed is our Lord who has saved you from the hands of Egypt, from the hands of Pharaoh, who has saved the nation from under the hand of Egypt. And then he goes on, now I know that the Lord is greater than all other gods because of this very thing that they have done. Okay, and it becomes this amazing celebration where Jethro joins and bringing sacrifices of thanksgiving to God, and everybody sits, and there's like just this amazing celebration. And for me, this is really a model. It is a model of Jethro is not of the nation of Israel. He's not related at all. Well, he's related kind of because his daughter married Moses, but he's definitely not part of the nation of Israel. And in fact, there's a wonderful rabbi who wrote a book about Moses, analyzing all these different biblical texts, and pointed out something very interesting. He said, Jethro is a priest of Midian, and drawing on some ancient Jewish traditions, Jethro was somebody who was very interested in theology and very interested in religion, and he in fact had tried out all kinds of different religions, and he had worshipped all the pagan gods there were at the time, and in fact he's a priest of Midian, so that already says something about his religious stature, but this is somebody who himself doesn't take things for granted. He thinks, he's willing to challenge accepted beliefs. And this is what we see here. This is a man who clearly is a pagan, and yet as a result of the events that he sees, of the miracles that God has done to Israel in the Exodus and everything leading up to it, he changes his faith, and he says now he recognizes God. There's no one greater than the God of Israel. And I think that, to me, this is so much a model of how the nations of the world today can understand God and can understand Israel if they choose to be open-minded, if they choose to really sit back and view the events of our day as they are. Because granted, God has not split the Red Sea for us, but the miracle of the return of the nation of Israel to the land of Israel is no less stunning. A miracle, a nation that has been dispersed all over the world for nearly 2,000 years. It sustains itself as a nation with its identity and its faith, and then comes back to its original homeland and establishes itself as an independent people and a modern state. The Hebrew language is revived. I mean, everything about the land of Israel and the modern state of Israel today is nothing short of a miracle. I would venture to say it's the greatest miracle of all time. And so we are looking for those Jethros out there, and thank God there are some Jethros. In fact, so many of my Christian friends are exactly this kind of a person, a Jethro, who says, whoa, now let's take a look at this. Let's reevaluate what we thought until now. It's well known that replacement theology was overwhelming in its influence in Christianity around the world. And for many, the establishment of the state of Israel suddenly opened the eyes of many who said, now, wait a second. If we see now the restoration of Israel, it cannot be that God is really finished with the Jews. And it's that kind of willingness to look clearly at events and understand as a result of events where God's hand is. That is something we learn from Jethro. And I think that it's something that nations all over the world should be reading this portion and saying, am I a Jethro? Have a wonderful weekend. Shabbat Shalom.
I hope you enjoyed that film. And we have lots more film content and emails and articles that I'm sure you will enjoy as well. Check out our website at CFOIC.com and subscribe to our newsletter. You can do that right from the homepage. I know you will really enjoy the content that will land in your inbox on a regular basis. Hope to see you soon.